we can even wait for a couple minutes now that we're live to see if anyone pops in, because now it will pop in the notifications, hopefully.
I don't know if I can see. Can you? You can see?
Yeah, I can see up in the corner, and then I will also make sure to pop up any comments or any questions for you that pop up.
Cool.
Because I'm doing everything from my phone, so I'm actually limited compared to other people that are doing things from like a laptop or what have you. But I also don't know what you have access to or what you can see, so I want to give you the best of all worlds if possible. Okay. Like we just had Linda pop in from Linda's World of Books. Linda. She's a fellow booktuber of mine, one of my best friends. She's actually in Ontario, which is where your publishing company is, which is really cool.
That's right.
Michelle, we might as well just jump right into this, Drew. We are live, and we are talking with author Drew Starling. Did I pronounce that right, Drew?
Yes. Yeah.
Or do you have to smack me on the head? I hate butchering authors' last names. It's like a...
For some reason, like 50% of the time people try to write my name, they write it as Drew Starling, and I have no idea why. So the fact that you have all the letters correct and in the right order is like a win. Hi, James.
Oh, good. I pride myself to try to make sure I'm careful, because I know a lot of people... I mean, I've got a very unusual spelling for my name, and I understand that. So I will often tell people that it's pronounced Nichi. I know it's really weird seeing it, but thanks to my mom for giving me such odd spelling, right?
I actually know another person with that name, Nicole, spelled that way.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Well, then she's a cool person then.
Yeah.
We have James that's popped into the chat. Okay, Drew, we want to know more about you. So why don't you tell us more about you and more about your piece that you have out there?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. All of this booktube and bookstagram and book talk and bookie things are a little bit new to me. And so it's been a really fascinating journey that I hope I'm at the beginning of. And I'm a dark fiction and horror author. I would say mostly just horror author. I'm based in Washington, D.C. in the United States. I've been writing, I guess, for serious purposes for like the last 2.5, 3 years. I've mostly published short stories. I've got about 24 horror short stories out there in the world with various publishers. Eerie River is one of them. Yeah, it's too many. And some of them I regret.
No, don't ever regret them. Don't ever regret them.
Yeah, some of them. The editing isn't great. So anyway, I got into this because I go on this cabin trip with my friends every year to this beautiful, idyllic place in the woods in the Shenandoah Valley, which is in Virginia, about 2 hours away from me. And one time, I was coming right back from a trip from India, which was a 5-day long trip. And if you're in the Western Hemisphere, I would recommend you not ever do that because the jet lag is murder both ways. So I got to this cabin, and it's all out there in the woods, and it overlooks this big valley and the sky and the mountains, and everything's out there. And I couldn't sleep. My sleep cycle was on a completely different side of the world. And my wife and I were in this one room, and it overlooked the valley at the front of the house. And I was just staring out the window, kind of admiring how beautiful it was. And the sun was like kind of maybe just starting to peek up. And there was this little like white mist stuff that was kind of on the grass way, way, way down there, hundreds of yards away, meters for those in the metric system. That's a bad joke. And then I saw this black shape, this black shadow move out of this big forest into this big blank meadow. And it just kind of, I don't know, it moved, like kind of hovered, kind of wavered through. And this thing was very large. I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think it was a bear, but it was kind of shaped in a vertical manner. And I was really like freaked out by it because it was like 4 a.m. and it was crickets, and it was like, oh my God. So I got up and looked at this thing, and I still couldn't figure out what it was. It was anyway. It was weird. So the next morning, I told my friends about it we had this hot tub. I was like, hey, can I tell you guys something about, would this be a good story? And I kind of, as I was watching it, made this story in my head. And they were like, yeah, that'd probably be a good like screenplay or like Reddit post or something. And 3 years later, it became this, which is my debut novel, Sentinel, with Eerie River Publishing. So it's been a long, hard journey, but yeah, it's been fun. And that's the main thing. You asked me to say directly what I'm trying to plug. I'm directly trying to plug just this one thing, Sentinel, my new novel, by Drew Starling. And that was the inspiration for it. And that story, as I developed it and worked it through, I found some Facebook groups that were really supportive. The Author Alliance was the first one, and they're sort of a derivative of the Reddit No Sleep community. I don't know if anybody, thank you, James. Yeah, maybe it was Bigfoot. That could have been the case. But, you know, and I kind of grew from there, and I met some publishers, and I very quickly sort of got asked to do a collaborative novel with this woman named Michelle River, who I didn't know, and a couple of other friends. And the novel came out. It was called Storming Area 51, and it was like released right after the whole right before the whole storming thing, and so it like did well for 3 weeks. But Michelle River and I have stayed close, and we've published stories together. She's accepted my stories. She's rejected my stories. She like totally tells me straight how it is. And she formed her own publishing company a couple of years ago, Eerie River. And you know, I was debating how to publish this. I considered self-publishing for the longest time. I didn't really consider a big traditional publishing, but I certainly looked at a lot of indie horror publishers. But at the end of the day, the only one that made sense was Eerie River, because I already had that implicit business trust. And, you know, I can say anything to her, she can say anything to me, kind of a thing. So there's like no walking on eggshells. She's just very blunt. And I'm just very like needy and demanding. And so it's been a great relationship. Hi, Michelle, if you're on. You know, it was a no-brainer, and it's been a great partnership. And the novel's been out for 6 weeks. It's done really well. I was frankly hesitant to like reach out to people like you and other Bookstagram reviewers because I didn't know if it was going to be received very well. And it's been received way better than I thought it was. And in fact, I kind of think people are lying or not being honest when they're like just trying to be nice with their reviews, because it's like, well, I know there's a lot of mistakes and there's things that I would redo if I could, but you know, it's getting like 4 and 5 star reviews everywhere. It has like 64 reviews on Amazon, all 4 and 5 star, which is like friggin' incredible.
Already?
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
I tried. I can talk about why I did that, but yeah, that was a serious effort. So it's been great, and I'm now like talking to awesome booktubers like you, and hitting the Bookstagram scene, finally coming out of my shell a little bit. So here I am. Hello, Lewis Stevenson.
Yes, and if you haven't seen his Bookstagram, you need to check it out. I do want to say hi to Jay. He did pop in to say hi, and he'll have to catch the replay. Book Blather, I love your eyes, your face, because as he's talking about that shadow figure, it was giving me chills. I'm telling you.
Seriously.
Yeah, it may be Bigfoot, maybe Sasquatch lingering in the shadows there. Yeah, the cover. Yeah, you have to pop it up again. Hold it up for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah,
Oh look at me. Isn't it gorgeous?
So this was done by a man named Francois Vaillancourt. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I, you know, just like everything else, Facebook, I'm a member of the Horror Writers Association and part of their Facebook. And someone just posted a thread of like, hey, who should I look at for a good cover? And everybody just glommed on and like, you got to get this guy. And so I just tucked that away and reached out a few months later when mine was ready, and he did it, and it's just amazing. And like I was telling you earlier, there's the sequel, Hello, Josh.
And Lewis, thanks for coming in, guys.
And he's going to do the next one, which is a follow-up. So
And you were saying that you already have an idea of what the second cover looks like, right?
Yes. I already have an outline, a totally like, I'm very, I used this awesome service called StoryGrid. Don't know if anybody's heard of it, but essentially it's mapping and outlining a story for people that have brains that work in Excel spreadsheets like mine. Like so many people our age, like my brain has been broken to become really good at Excel spreadsheets, which is not something I don't think anybody's proud of, but here we are. And it kind of like lets you do that. And so I have this like massive Excel spreadsheet with the entire outline for the second one already completed. I know what the cover is going to look like. So my goal is to get that out like late this year or maybe early next, probably like mid next year if I'm being honest, but it's going to happen. So yeah.
So if you jump into book 1, you don't have that long to wait till there's book 2.
No, hopefully. I mean, I don't know what people consider long days because so many people are doing rapid releases, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to write a book every month. Like, wow.
No.
That's never going to do that.
No, I can understand novellas, you know, if they've already got like a bunch of stories planned and they know exactly where they want to go with it. But if you're looking at like your full length novel, it's not going to happen. But I mean, as long as it's not like 5 years down the road, where
Well, this one took 3. So hopefully it'll get better, but I don't know.
It's hard. They're your babies. You want them to come out exactly the way you want. You want them polished and you want to grow as you go. But you know, sometimes us readers we get, and I'm sure you can relate as well, because I know that authors are always readers as well.
Oh yeah.
You're getting engrossed in these stories, and then you know they just drop, and the author doesn't ever come out with the next book, or it's going to be 10 years from now, and it's like, but now I'm going to have to go back and reread all of the series before the next book comes out.
One of my weaknesses as a writer is I really need distance from whatever I'm writing, and so even if it's a short story, I used to be able to turn around short stories in like 3 days or 5 days, and I look back at some of those, and they aren't that great. And what I wish I'd had is 2 weeks to sit and let it chill. With this book, there were 3 or 4 periods of like months where I had to just back off and really reevaluate it. And I think that's just me not being new at this, frankly. And like, maybe I'll work out of that, but maybe not. But I accept that that's part of my process. So I'm okay with it. It's just what I need to do to make sure that my head is right. And I consider other details. I like read other books, like you say, and pick up little things and think like, oh man, that was a cool phrase. How do I steal that without paraphrasing it? You know, these little ideas that I just get from everywhere. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's what I have to do.
That's what's great about this community. You know, authors talking with authors, you know, supporting other authors, giving ideas, tips, tricks. I even have an indie author group on Instagram where we have a group chat with a bunch of indie authors, and they can just throw out a question. And I mean, I'm the one that just sits back and listens because I'm not an author myself, right? But to get to even watch what they say or how they answer each other, or, you know, the tidbits and tricks that they share with each other, it helps me learn as a promoter as well, because then I know the tips and tricks, or if someone comes to me, then I can say, listen, I know exactly who you need to talk with. But yeah, you need to do your own thing, what works for you, your own process, you know, and that way you'll be able to grow and just keep releasing, and your fan base will get bigger and bigger and bigger. I want to know more about how you got so many reviews on Amazon right away. That's awesome.
I would love to tell you, because one of my reviewers just popped into the chat. Love wolves. That's what this person goes by. Well, I didn't really know. I mean, I knew that when I wanted to launch this I could try to get a lot of sales, but like, I don't know if I know how to do that. I could also like do a lot of Facebook and Amazon ads, which is something that I actually do in my private life professionally, like a lot of those ads and that kind of a thing, and try and generate buzz that way. I could jump into the Bookstagram thing, but I told you I didn't want to do that immediately because I didn't know if it was going to be any good. So what I decided to do, which is what a lot of the, you know, self-publishing community promotes, is building a mailing list. And so what I did is I knew that I wanted to launch this book, and a year and a half ago, I started building a mailing list by giving away what are called reader magnets. And a reader magnet is just a little thing that you can give to a reader for free to hook them in to say, hey, why don't you check out my work? And so I had 4 or 5 short stories that did really well. And I decided to essentially give those away for free to anybody who wanted them in exchange for them joining my email list. And fast forward to today, I now have 2,300 people on my email list. And through that time, I was also able to sort of winnow down who are the real fans, who are the ones that are going to like come back, who are the ones that actually click through. And I created an ARC team just based off of my mailing list. And my ARC team was about 50, 55 people. And I think I got 30 or 35 or 40 reviews out of them in the first. And I was like, Love Wolves can attest. I mean, I was pretty like, you know, you have to stay on them and you have to say, hey, like, you know, you have to stay on them and you have to email them a lot. And you have to thank them. And, you know, they're your fans. It's a two-way street. And so it was just a like, it felt like this beautiful, like, culmination of a relationship. Oh, and they also got the book for free. So, I mean, that's something. They get the ebook for free, right? As any ARC reviewer would. And when that review comes up, it's just like the best feeling. But that's how I did it. And I also, frankly, like, hit up my family and friends, and I'm new enough in the author world that I was able to use the whole, like, hey, this is my first novel thing. And that was because I also, like, objectively told people, like, no, don't buy that short story collection because I don't get anything off of that. I'll let you know when to buy something, and this is the thing to buy. And so I got a bunch that way, and now people are, you know, it's died down for sure. Like, I think I got 30 in the first week or two, and, you know, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's been another 30. I think in the last week, it's been 1 or 2. But it's honestly way more than I thought I was going to get. I was like, I'll be happy if I get 25 reviews. But what I actually want to do is hopefully at some point with Michelle, I guess I can reveal this, take the price down at some point to then go for a BookBub deal. I don't know if you're familiar with BookBub, but
BookBub, love it, love it.
Some people either know it, like you, or you have never heard of it, and I don't understand. I don't understand who's heard of it and who. But anyway, a ton of people. There's like 600,000 people on the horror list. So part of the goal there is to, oh yeah, Night Terrors. That is the big series too that got me a little bit on the map. Scare Streets. Hey LJ, what's going on? So anyway, I'll shut up and let some of these other people talk.
No, it's okay. It's your, like I said, the spotlight is on you today, Drew. It's all about you. Talk away. And you know what? I enjoy that because I really get to sit back and just get to know you and your personality. And however, I know you guys, everyone watching, I feel awful. Again, another author that I haven't been able to read any of his work as of yet. You know that is on my list, though. I mean, for the cover alone, I know the guts of the story is going to be just as good, but you have to, I mean, any bookstagrammer needs that cover in their life.
Yeah, it's a good bookstagrammable cover, thank God.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, and that promotes too. But I really enjoy getting to sit back and get to know the author, their personalities. And even if I haven't had the chance to read any of their work yet, I don't know, something about getting to know them and then getting the chance to pick up their pieces and dive into them. You can really feel their personalities and their different quirks and stuff like that coming off the page. And I don't know, it makes the read that much more for me. But we did have one question that popped up here from James. And said, did you have the idea for the second book at the same time, or did it come later on?
No, I definitely did not. It came separately. I'm trying to remember how I came up with the idea for the second one. Well, I knew that there was going to be a cliffhanger, and so I knew I had to do something. And based off some of the ARC reviewers' feedback about, hey, who's your favorite character and this and that, I was able to come up with something. And I'm also going through this process of like, well, this is your one shot to like write a sequel. So is this definitely the right story? Because I knew this was the right but you know, as long as I get to the end point, I know what the end point is. Actually, the first chapter I wrote was the last chapter in the in the next one.
Really?
Yeah, so that one's already written, and I actually wrote the first chapter. So I kind of did that with this one too, and I kind of worked in, which is really weird, but yeah, I don't know. It definitely came separately. I hope it's right. I hope it's right. I think it is, but you know, it's a little bit different too. It has to answer more questions. The thing I'm most worried about is that it has to answer more questions than it presents. And this one it presents a lot of questions, and I think it has a lot of twists and turns. A lot of people are shocked by the ending, and you can't really shock people. I mean, I guess you can, but you know, I feel you've got to really wrap it up. Unlike 90% of the horror movies, which I watch and still watch, even though they're terrible, like, wait, what? So you answered 15% of the plot. Okay. So you cannot get away with that in the literary world. So
no, you'll make people angry, or you have to have those soft cliffhangers. That's how I call them. So where it kind of leaves enough that it can let the reader's mind explore how they think it's going to end. Yeah. If that's the way you're going to do it, and you're not going to make it into a series and it's going to be a standalone, I like those soft. I can handle the soft cliffhangers, but you're right. If it's got like a big left off, you need those answers for sure.
Two of my most trusted ARC team members flagged for me. Like, they gave me 4 stars instead of 5, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with 3 stars. I'm fine with 2 stars. Whatever.
How dare you?
Yeah, just be honest. I'm not like these people, but they were like, I forget how they put it, but like, I want to know that there's a second book, because you do leave cliffhangers. And so I actually quickly edited it to, in the back matter, include a blurb to book 2. So the blurb to book 2 and the title and the main characters are in there, because I know what it's going to, well, I guess that's what it has to be now. Jesus, now that I think about it. So I guess I'm a little stuck. That is what the story is going to be. But yeah, it's in there. So the book 2 is coming.
That's exciting. Circling back to BookBub, BookBlather does say, what about audio? Maybe a BookBub type deal with Terp?
It's a great question. One that I would answer if I had any idea how that worked.
And the cost.
I'm still very new at this. I think I can reveal too that my wife is actually a professional voiceover artist. She's done a bunch of audiobooks and she does radio ads. So she's going to be reading the audiobook. So like, that's nice. And I don't know exactly, I don't quite understand the world of like credits and audiobook codes, and I would love it because I love audiobooks. I just consumed Stephen King's Later in 2 days on a long drive via audiobook. So I'm a big advocate, and I am one of those people that is like definitely going to turn everything I can into an audiobook. But I don't know how that works. I need to sit down and
figure that out. Yeah.
If you have any advice, Drew at drewstarling.com or
I know people that I could probably direct you to that have done it, you know, even like independent, that didn't have even like a small press behind them or anything. First off, that's fantastic that your wife can do that for you, because I know the biggest thing for indie and small press is the cost.
Oh yeah.
Hands down, audiobooks are not cheap to do. So if you have somebody that already has that like talent and knows what they're doing, prime. That's prime. And about BookBub as well. BookBub is also really hard to get on from what I've heard.
I know. I don't have any expectations there, but I wanted to put my best foot forward. It has all these amazing reviews. It's doing well. So like, I don't know what else I can do.
No, go for it. Absolutely. And that's why I always say reviews, especially on Amazon, because that's when the author can take part in those things. However, I also hear that Amazon, I don't have that problem because I spend a lot on Amazon. But I hear that Amazon in some places actually force you to spend so much in order to be able to leave reviews.
That is true. Yep.
That makes it hard for people as well, because you want to be able to support, but if you don't purchase from them very often.
No, a lot of my friends here are they don't like horror, and I'm very honest with them. Like, if you don't like horror, do not buy it, or don't even buy it, but just leave a review on Amazon. Like, that is how you can help me. In fact, I'd almost rather you leave an Amazon review than read it. Like, I don't care. You're not the people that are gonna like evangelize it. You are. So like just leave a review. It's the gold standard.
Even just go on there and say, I haven't read this, but I know the author personally, and I know what he's about, and it's gonna be killer. You gotta pick it up. Or go and buy it for friends, family members.
Totally.
Birthday. Oh my goodness, if somebody bought me a bunch of horror books for birthday or Christmas.
Seriously. Oh, I know.
That's my level for sure. Linda, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure where your comment kind of fits in here with the conversation, because of course there's always a delay.
I know what she's saying. So the book is this Linda's World of Books is actually from a different character's perspective.
Oh, okay.
So actually, yeah, there's 3 main POVs in Sentinel. And I kind of fell in love with one of the characters who is not either one of the 2 initial main characters, the father and the mother, who are like the main star family. But the policewoman, whose name is Cheryl, and she's like in her late 50s, and she's just like kind of rough and tumble, like middle-aged woman, who I just really fell in love with writing. And she, again, my beta readers are like, she's the best character. And that was part of why I went that way, is I wanted to shift it to her perspective and listen to my readers to like, oh, we really like her. I'm like, okay, great. I do too. Let's get her more involved. So I am shifting POVs.
Would you go as far to say that she's one of your favorite characters, or is that pushing too hard?
No, she probably is. She's probably my favorite character.
Yeah, I know with an author that's got a few pieces out, or asking what your favorite piece is, or do you have a favorite character? I know that's like asking if you have a favorite child.
Not really, because honestly, some of them I don't like. I was like, okay, I don't have to write him that much anymore. Okay, good.
Well, you have to have those ones that give the happy feels and the negative feels to the reader, so that we get to experience all the emotions throughout.
And the great thing about horror is, if you don't like rating somebody, just kill them.
Yes. I often bug authors. If you were to write me into a book, how would you kill me?
Really?
Because it's neat to know, even if they don't know me, some of them come up with some really weird ways, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't have even ever thought of that. So it shows that you guys have creative minds.
I saw
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I saw the movie Fear Street 1994 last night, and I won't say anything about it except that I was like not feeling this movie until about a good way in, until there was a really creative death, and I was like, okay, good. Now I'm in.
You're hooked.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Hyperactive bookworm. Okay, first off, I love that handle.
Neen,
that is awesome.
Yeah. Neen Cohen, I have to plug her for a second. She has a new novella out. She's a good friend of mine from Eerie River Publishing. It's called Cold as Hell. Neen is an amazing author from Australia who I kind of grew up with, you could say, in the indie world, in the even less than indie world. So thank you, Hyperactive Bookworm, aka Neen Cohen, who has Cold as Hell out just recently.
Another person that will have to go. I'm telling you, you're adding to my list, Drew. You're adding to my list. Not even your own piece. You're also giving me other authors to check out. Thanks for coming by, Priscilla. She's always in our chats, always supporting. Aw, see, this is what I mean about author love, supporting, giving those shout outs. And I mean, all of you guys deserve all of the love. Can we dive into, I was going to ask you another question. Maybe I'll hold off to that for a second, but can we dive into the publishing process? And is there a favorite part of it that you enjoyed, or was it daunting at times?
Yes. Yeah. Well, when you say publishing, in your mind, when does the publishing process start? You know what I mean?
I would think the moment that it's been accepted. So you've submitted it, it's been accepted, and now you're in the works of actually releasing your piece with that.
Yeah. Okay. The hardest part was absolutely receiving the feedback from my publisher that was like, so you need to change these things. And I was like, yep, you're right. And then I sat on it for like 2 months. So that was, I don't know. That was definitely the hardest part, because I had gotten to the point where I was just so done with it, and I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was like, nope, you got to come back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you serious? My 5th rewrite on this thing? And like, yep. But thank God. And like, again, I imagine most publishers are, but she was really honest, and she, we negotiated some things, but it got out to where it needed to be at the end, and that was the hardest part. But the best part was actually having it out there and seeing these reviews come in, and it was just like, again, like every single one of these reviewers I knew for the most part, and every time one popped up, it was like the culmination of this relationship. I was like, oh my God, like, you reviewed it. Like, yes, we did it. And I really feel like we kind of did it together. And so that was a real highlight. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, we have somebody in the chat that's a spammer and that is putting some very vulgar stuff, but for whatever reason, it's not letting me kick him. So yeah. It's just going to keep going. So here is a character you can kill off.
Yeah, I think if I were to kill him off, I would have him get trapped down on his back in front of an operating meat grinder, one of those ones that really kind of slices in, and he would be like struggling, and maybe he'd get a hand on your throat or my throat because it would be me trying to kill this guy. And then his head would just sort of part open in like 19 different ways. And just,
ooh. I love the description.
I stole that death from something you might know. That's the death that's on my mind right now.
Do you think you would ever stray away from horror, or is that like dark fiction? Is that where your heart lies now?
I've been thinking about that a little bit, only because oh man, this is deep. This is like, how much time do you have? I'll just summarize by saying I don't, and this is something that like I'm curious about authors like Neen, and I saw Josh was here earlier. Like, if people also have full-time jobs in addition to being, I have a full-time and a half like plus job that I like cannot look at anything. It is like I don't have time to make this a career and make it a thing that I would want to make tons of money on. I don't do this for the money at all, as Michelle will attest, my publisher. And I do wonder if I were ever able to really do it in a way that I would want to, if I were just horror. And that is not an indictment of the market or anything, but it is just like, I just don't know if I am ready to go all that in. And that's just a really honest assessment. There are other genres that I think could be more like get rich quick schemes, especially given some of my like personal. I honestly, if I were to do it, I would probably like do a completely different pen name and do something like that, because what I wouldn't want to do is like hook and crook people into like, oh hey, I'm a romance author now. Like, Drew Starling will always be a horror author, but maybe like Drew Starling will be a political thriller author or something. I don't know. That's the only other genre I've been debating, is like political thrillers, because it's unfortunately a world I know very well. But no, not anytime soon. Hopefully not. I just love horror. I love the community. I love how it makes your mind stretch in ways that are uncomfortable, but it's also really fun, and it feels like a secret club sometimes. And so I'm not ready to leave that or deviate from it yet.
I'm so happy that you said that, and horror's just, I've called myself out many times in a live show, and I'm going to do it again. Might as well. People are going to hate me anyways. A long time ago, when I first started my channel, I was reviewing for larger publishing companies, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
mainly like the YA fantasy, contemporary, that stuff, right? Very cookie cutter, very cookie cutter. Yeah, it sells. YA fantasy sells, or fantasy in general. It just
urban
flies
fantasy
off the shelves. Yes.
I don't get it. I mean, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. For anybody offended.
No, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it.
It's just
true, though.
Okay, whatever.
And I
was
mean,
shocked about romance. I mean, romance. Wow, I've never really read I'm admitting this for this time. I've never really read a romance, like true romance novel. I just am not interested. I'm sorry. I'm good.
And there's nothing to be sorry about. There's things that you're interested in, things that you're not.
Yeah.
But that was, and I did this tag, and one of the questions is what is a genre that you could have nothing to do with, or that you could just drop off this planet and pretend it never happened? And I picked horror and sci-fi, and smack me on the hand, because everyone was coming to me and saying, why? And I said, well, because I've read tons of horror and sci-fi, and nothing's really gripped me. Like, I haven't found, what I really enjoy. And it was actually, and we've got another one. Sorry, guys. And it won't let me block them.
Oh,
you're love, Drew. We have all the spammers in here.
The other commenters, if you're in here, you have to out spam this. It's 7 against 1. So don't let them win.
But it was actually Jason from Jason's Weird Reads in here that said, there are so many different subgenres within horror. So you really have to dive in deep and find your love. And I did. I found my love, and now that's where my heart lies, is this dark fiction. So the other thing about horror is, if you stay within horror as an author, there's so many different subgenres that you can dip your toes in and give a try, right? Well, I got to try to go back up from the spammer and put this up. From Hyperactive Bookworm. It's a tricky balance, and you have to figure out what works for you.
I don't know. I mean, this is working for me now.
For the money, love of the stories. Is your family really supportive of what you do? Whether whether reading your stuff or just giving you time to write?
Yes. No, my father is a huge bookworm, although he said he will not read this book because, as you will tell from the blurb, it has to do with a little boy being in serious peril. And he's like, I can't read it. He has 2 sons. He's like, I can't read anything that puts a little boy in peril, which is like really sweet. My mom won't read it either because she doesn't. So they're supportive. My wife, however, was the very first person who read it. I feel like I have commandeered to go on this horror journey with me. And she's read it 5 times. She's read, I mean, I'm like really kind of terrible about it, where I'll be like, hey, I rewrote these 3 sentences. Can you reread these 3 sentences? And she will maybe roll her eyes at me, but do it. She'll accept every time. So they've been extremely supportive. And, I've always been a little quirky, in terms of, having eccentric hobbies, and that's what this is right now. But, they've just been amazing, and I haven't been shy about it. And like I said, I think that I've been putting it in perspective. I think if I were to say to any of them, yep, I'm quitting tomorrow and I'm going to be a full-time author, that would raise some eyebrows. Although it would be noble, I'm realistic enough to know that that's not going to put food on the table. So they've been supportive because I think we're all on the same page about what it is. And, in 10 years, I would love to be doing this full time, but I understand that's my arc. It's not going to be 2 years. It might not even be 10. It might be 20. Maybe I wouldn't even want to. I don't know, but
who knows? I was going to say, do you have an idea of what you would do if that did happen for you? But
I mean, honestly, I there's part of me that thinks it might never happen because maybe it'll shift such that 80% of my life is writing and 20% of my life is doing what I'm doing professionally now, whereas it's reversed. But I actually like what I do professionally, and I'm really good at that. And it is good, money wise, right now. And it gives me a lot of personal value. And I also I'm kind of like an introvert extrovert, and so I don't know that I would do very well being a writer. Although I'm learning how to be more social and more coming out of my shell doing stuff like this as a writer, because it's been really embarrassing. And I'm happy to tell you about my escapades walking into bookstores, local bookstores, over the last 2 days, because that's been friggin' my heart pounding out of my chest with intimidation. But I like being in meetings, and I like talking to people, and I like being in an office. Actually, I like that stuff. Maybe I could do half and half as opposed to just one and the other. So I don't know, but I at least know that about myself. I know that if I were to just stop tomorrow, it would be bad. So I don't know, but I spend all my free time doing this.
Hey, this is fun. I'm sorry, you guys. Priscilla, I would love to be able to turn off the chat, but unfortunately, StreamYard doesn't give me that option because it is live.
It's just kind of funny. We're all in this together.
We're all in it, but normally, oh, and it worked this time. All right, there's one block. Yay! Well, usually, I have the option of getting to poke and just block the person, but for whatever reason, for the first couple ones that come up, it won't give me that option. StreamYard is
wouldn't it have been hilarious if he just dropped a totally legit question in the middle of it? Like, what's your writing process like? Oh. Thank you, Jason. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And apparently StreamYard even gives you the option to have mods that are in there so that they can actually take care of this. Unfortunately, this is where I get to poke and say, I need to find a way to make money from this myself so I can actually get a proper setup and not just use my little phone.
Well, so kudos to you for rolling with it. Yeah.
It's very true. Well, I mean, I hope that we can plug and help you maybe get to that place where maybe you could make this full time, but at the same time, if you love what you do, having it on the side is that's the icing on the cake, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm also trying to really appreciate each step of the journey. When 7 weeks ago, when this book was not out in the world, I was in a very different place in my journey. And 6 weeks later, here I'm, and I'm trying to really relish that step. And, I got the ARC reviews. Was like, well, I need to start promoting this more on social media. And I have a Facebook page, but I hate Facebook. Okay, answer your question. Oh, Priscilla, yes. If you want to vamp for 5 seconds, I'll go get him, and you guys can meet him.
Did you see him in the picture for the thumbnail for this live show? So sweet. Oh my goodness.
Here he is.
Oh my goodness.
This is Poe. He is a 30-pound, 6-year-old Moyenne poodle. And Moyenne means medium. He's just a medium-sized dog, and he's a good boy. And we love him so much. And he hates being right here, but he should be.
He's so calm.
I know.
How is he so calm? I'm jealous.
He's a super chill dog. He's a super chill. It's also 8:44. It's past his bedtime. I was supposed to make him out 45 minutes ago, but he's gonna hold it until we're done. And that's not a we need to wrap up. It is just he's gonna be this sweet little boy, and he's very smart, and he loves his treats, and he loves his babysitter, and he loves his mom more than anything else.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And he is not necessarily my. Whoa. Sorry. Whoa. He's not necessarily my muse, but in my bio, I have in all of my work, the dog never dies. Spoiler alert. I even have it in my Bookstagram profile. And you'd be surprised how many comments that gets. Because people love dogs, and I'm kind of running with this thing where I'm not going to kill a dog, because I could do it, but I just won't. Yeah, I was going to mention the name of a very famous book in which they just kill dogs, and it's
there's a few of them. And it sure does get the emotion stirring. I do also have children in peril. It does bother me as a mother. It does bother me. However,
sure,
you can it stirs up an emotion in you, but it really depends on how the author does it. Is it tasteful? Is it something you can read and get past?
Yeah.
But same thing with animals. Those are my two soft spots, but it doesn't necessarily stop me from reading it. It just really stirs up the emotions. Let me tell you, it ends up being a book that I will never forget, though. So, right?
Well, yeah.
So it definitely keeps it in people's radar and keeps it in their memory for sure.
in Sentinel, one of the main characters is a dog, and so I think because I've been so like dog attuned, I actually think one of the better characters I wrote was the dog. But he actually plays a pretty pivotal role, especially early on. Um, and I will not tell you what happens to him, although you can probably infer from my profile. And hopefully I'm a man of my word. But that's
It's
all I'm
making me want to read this more and more and more. Linda, are you still in the chat? You want to add to our buddy read list?
It's for, I don't know if you are ebook people, but it's free on Kindle Unlimited right now.
Oh, see, that's it. You know, and that's another thing that I love is that as much as it would be nice to see more indie author, small press coming out on audiobook, just because it makes it more accessible for everyone.
Oh yeah.
Again, cost is a problem when it comes to that for sure. But having Kindle Unlimited and all of this is also extremely handy, right? Because
totally.
I mean, but I don't know how well that helps support the authors. I myself am the person that will go and get the Kindle copy and the physical copy. And if there's an audiobook, I'll go and get the audiobook too.
Awesome.
Just so you can help support in every way that you possibly can. Absolutely.
Yeah, those Kindle page rates, man.
Yes.
It's Jeff Bezos. He's really got his finger on the pulse. As unfortunate as it is.
Linda says she's downloaded it already. So she said yes, buddy read. So
awesome.
that's really...
Thanks, Linda. I think you'll like it.
I have another friend who, you know, dogs in peril or dogs being killed in books is a huge thing for her. So I know what I'm going to do right after this is I'm going to send her to your page and say, check out this one. The dog never dies.
Yes. Excellent.
And I'm sure that will probably hook her and sink her for sure.
People comment on it. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, really? Tell me about that. Why? I'm like, well, yeah.
Does it ever get old when you have a new review come in and you get to sit down and read it or listen to it?
No.
No.
I just like seeing that number tick up and like, you know what I haven't had yet, which is going to come. I know it is. And every author, I mean, this just shows you how new I am, but like, I haven't had that one scathing review yet. I've had a couple that were 3 stars that were like very bluntly lay out what I didn't like about this. But I haven't had that like 1 star or 2 star like diatribe. And I don't know. I'm answering the exact opposite of what you asked. But that will be a new experience. So in terms of getting old, that will be new.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It'll come. So, yeah.
Dark takes pills. Maybe I do. Maybe that's what makes me very exciting. I don't know. You know, and it's funny that you say that because I always say that negative reviews also sell. I don't know how many times I've seen somebody rant about a book or really pull it apart, but when they give their reasons on why they didn't like it, I think, that sounds interesting to me. Yeah. I go pick it up. I absolutely love it. And oddly enough, people seem to be drawn to negativity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, negative reviews sell just as much as positive. That's what I always say if I'm talking to an author and they mention that they got another negative review, or I always say, don't worry. Negativity, it sells.
I'm going to try and keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. And I mean, but it says something too, that you haven't had any of those reviews yet and that you've had the positive or that medium level, right? Am I a witch? Yes, we all are. You are getting all the love. You're getting all the spammers in the chat tonight. What is it about you, Drew? They're just
I thought Ryan Michael was legit.
That'd be too funny. Why did you kick me? I'll get a message later. Right. Yes, absolutely. Negative reviews can help. I'm informative negative reviews. If the person just goes on, we've had this talk lots. If they just go on and say, I hate it, don't read it, and they're not giving a reason, it's not. It's just not their idea or their niche. Do you read horror yourself as a reader, or do you read different genres as well?
Well, I read a lot of horror. I read a lot of everything else too. Where do you want me to go with that? I can. So actually, what I'll mention is I go through reading like total like spurts, and I will read nothing for like 6 months, and then I will right now I'm in a reading, and I think it actually is in cycles with my writing, where I'm getting ready, I'm getting my brain ready to write the second book, got the outline, and now I just need to figure out what are some of the details and how do I want this to sound and how do I want it to feel. And I'm consuming a lot of books to get that sense. And to actually, I'm rereading some books that helped inspire me for the first one, um, to remember that sense because I want it to feel like it's the same writing, even though my writing has changed a lot in the last 3 years. So I do read a lot of horror. And it's actually why I started the Scary Starling Bookstagram channel in the first place, is because I had Facebook, I have Twitter, which I just hate. I'm sorry. I just can't. I love that you guys are all on Twitter. Maybe one day I'll do it, but all I do is see negative charged emotions, and I just immediately turned off. And I get that it's a great place to promote, but I have had zero success promoting on Twitter. All of my tweets get like 0 likes. But Instagram it's always been my favorite in a personal regard. And I wanted to start a channel where I started talking about books from other people. And I do that. And Michelle, who is my, again, like super honest with me, publisher's like, yo, you need to start using that channel to actually talk about your book, you idiot. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so I will every now and then do a video about my stuff. But I love talking about other people's books, specifically on horror. And I'm noticing that because I'm in this like horror community, my horror reviews are the ones that get the most likes. So that's a long way of answering. Yes, I read everything, and I obviously read a lot more horror than other things.
No, absolutely. Do you find it hard to market your own stuff? Because it's always easier to talk about somebody else.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm reaching out to people like you and like these bookstagrammers to let them do it, because I don't want to. I don't know. It just comes off as lame, and like the one time I did it, didn't get as many likes, and then that gets in your head, and then I like post something about Stephen King and it blows up, and it's just like, oh God, and like it is hard. It is super hard.
Yeah.
But it's also why I have the email list too. Like that's a network that's just me. That's just mine, and they are there for me and my work. So I never feel guilty about like, hitting them on the head with things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like that you say that you don't like Twitter and that you like Bookstagram, because I find a lot of authors are very, very much so driven to Twitter. And I'm like, oh, I'm more active on
I
on
want to be.
Instagram.
Guys. I want to like it. I really do. I just can't. It's just so heartbreaking every time.
It is a lot of negativity, or just when you find that people are starting to get along, something happens and it blows up again. And it does. It definitely stirs the emotions, and it will pull people apart and make them feel like maybe they should just take off altogether, which is not what we should be doing at all. This kind of follows into that, talking about different authors and reading other people's work. This was another question I was thinking of, and you took it right out of my mouth. Love Wolves is, do you have a favorite author, or do you have any other authors that really inspire your writing style?
I feel like this is sort of in the same way that my favorite band has been Guns N' Roses since I was 18 and still is somehow. Thought I was going to grow out of that. My favorite author is Cormac McCarthy, and it's one of these things I thought I would grow out of, as this sort of like young, aggressive, cis white male, like reading this guy who's making like a sunset sound like it's Armageddon. You know what I mean? And like, oh, his language and I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to characterize it, but I love Cormac McCarthy, and I love his style, and I love his writing. It feels like the immature thing to say. That's what I'm trying to say. but I'm still just drawn to it. I just think it's really badass, and I wish I could do that. But I will list some other authors that I think are getting up there, more so in our world. I read my first book by Gemma Amor in one sitting. It was Dear Laura, and this is a woman who I see a lot more of Cormac McCarthy in her writing style than like Stephen King, and I think that's a good thing. So there are some authors out there that I think are Oh, the other one that I just read, which reminds me of that, is Eric LaRocca. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and although 90% of it was emails, when he did kind of zoom out, it was very tight, wonderful, like sort of um, less conversational prose and more observational and like sort of omniscient prose. And I really like that, and that's what I strive to do in my writing. So Cormac McCarthy is my favorite, but I think it's a little bit of a childish thing. I'm like kind of holding on to from like my like young aggressive days is what I'm saying. Um, but it still gets me, just the way like Guns
Mm-hmm.
N' Roses still gets me, and I'm like, oh man, this is sweet. uh, but there's so many great ones out there that I'm learning and learning different styles and getting more exposure to like different authors that are more like, oh, okay, I relate to this, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like Dean Koontz. You know, it's like, what is this? I don't know. Maybe people love Dean Koontz, but
I haven't read any of Kuntz work, and I feel so I feel so bad because some people will say King or Kuntz, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to say
ooh,
King because I've never read Kuntz work before.
yeah, I know what my answer is there. I hate to say it. Definitely King.
It's yeah, and there's so much talent out there, and I find that like the indie and small press world has completely changed things because
I hope
you
so.
guys get to produce these things and create these things that are raw and different, and they're
Yeah,
I
and it
shouldn't
came out.
say
Yeah,
yeah, I shouldn't say that they're never not picked apart because they are. I'm sure there's, circumstances where they are, but for the most part, you get to release them the way you want to, and you're not being told that you have to take this chunk out or you need to add this or the cover needs to be just like this. Um, that's why it was really fascinating to me when you said that you got to pick who did your cover art. Because
uh-huh.
you hear these authors say that they didn't even get to have like any say in the
Yeah,
creative process when it came to creating the book and the outside of it.
yeah. Well, that's a big reason too why I went with Eerie River, is because we had this relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
she knew that for months I was debating how I was going to do this, and I was really leaning towards self-publishing because I wanted that control. And so we negotiated that stuff. And I'll be frank, like, I paid for the cover, and I said, you know what, I'll get this because it means that much to me. And there are things like that where things even out. And so I won't go into too many details, but she was flexible in what our arrangement
Mm-hmm.
was going to be. And that, again, it's because of the trust and the flexibility. She let me do it my way. But I also deeply, deeply, deeply trust her, which is why Eerie River was like a no brainer, and most likely why they're going to do the next one. So, um, yeah, that was important for me.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that, to know that you had that freedom and you had that say, because these pieces, like I said, they're your babies from
Yeah.
start to finish. You want to
Yeah.
be part of the whole entire creative process of putting it out there. So to be told that you can't even choose what the cover is going to look like or don't even have a say, it just that would break
Right.
my that would break my heart. Maybe not for others that don't really care about that or that gives them some
Oh
type
no,
of
you have to.
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm excited that you got to have that
Yeah.
experience and that you're going to be able to experience it again. And I can't remember if I said it off live or during live, but Erie River is Canadian. I got
Oh
to
yeah.
plug that because we don't have too many small press publishing companies in Canada. So when you see one out there or you see a new one starting up, it gets so exciting for us Canadians because it's usually the US that are putting these things out. I have to circle back to Eric LaRocca.
Oh yeah.
Um, he started out, and within a couple months, he just blew up, and he went just absolutely crazy. And now he's, in demand. So,
Yeah.
what would you do? How would you feel if that happened to you?
Oh, I'd probably feel a lot of anxiety because, again, I already feel like I'm leading a double life, and I cannot step out. I don't know about Eric's personal arrangements and what their other, professional endeavors might be or personal endeavors might be. Um, and that's a situation specific to them, but I don't know that I would handle it well, frankly, like, because I'm very, very, very entrenched in what I'm doing in my regular career. I don't know. I guess I'd figure it out, but it would, I don't know. I have a family, I have a job, I have hobbies that are outside of writing. I have this writing
Mm-hmm.
career, so I already feel like I have no time in my life for anything, and so something in my life would have to be pushed to the wayside to, let's say, double the amount of time that I'm putting into this. And I could deal with it, but it might not be what I want, or
Mm-hmm.
what my wife wants, or what my family wants. And that's important too, because what they want is what I want, because we need to make sure everybody's happy. So I don't know. It's a great question. And I don't think about it a lot because I don't think I just don't feel like that's like on the horizon necessarily. I guess it'd be great if it was, but again, I am really, really also kind of relishing this stage, and I kind of don't want to skip any steps, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in my other professional life, that's something that I think I've seen a lot of people who like rise really quickly fail, eventually, because they didn't really put the work in this, smaller or the medium steps. And I don't know. That's just a personal perspective, maybe for Eric, this is exactly what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know their story, frankly, like that much. I just read the one book and like loved it. um, so yeah, I don't know. I hope that everybody's getting what they want out of it, and taking it, and at least able to check in with themselves on a regular enough basis to just be honest about what it is that they want and they don't want, and pursuing that. So I don't know.
No, absolutely. I like you made a really good point. I never thought of it or pictured it that way, of somebody that, just flies up there on the scale, missing all those middle pieces, or, really learning or having those experiences to really lock down once they get to that top mark. That's
Yeah.
a really good point, Drew. That's going to stick with me for the rest of my life now. That's a
Ugh.
really good way to look at it. Because what do you miss? What experiences do you miss out on? Um, I do have to say, I'm very excited that you loved Eric's work, because I'm so lucky to get to call Eric one of my really dear friends,
Oh, cool.
through the book community. He was actually one of the first authors that I ever had on here to do one of these lives.
No way.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so it feels really good to hear that, to see that other people are really enjoying that, and I'm sure he'll probably come by and watch this after the fact, and he'll love that we got to talk about him as well.
Yeah. Send fast forward through all the weird parts.
No, he'll have to watch the whole thing.
Okay. Great.
If you want to hear it, you have to watch through the whole thing.
All right. You heard it, Eric. It's not my rule. It's your rule.
That's right. Well, we have hit the 1 hour mark.
Yes.
Does anyone in the chat have any questions or anything? I don't want to take all of Drew's time, because he's more than welcome to come back anytime, because we're going to want to hear more, and especially once I get to read Sentinel, I'm gonna have more questions. I'm sure I'm gonna have more questions.
Scrolling back up through the comments to see if we missed any good ones. I think we got a lot of them. Do you have any family members? We already met Poe.
Mm-hmm.
What are you working on at the moment?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Well, yeah. So I'm working on. Honestly, I'm working on a lot of marketing. Like I'm doing a lot of outreach to the Bookstagram crew. A lot of interaction, and a lot of that outreach is just, not just spamming your book, but actually getting to know their pages and interacting with them. And like, I'm kind of frankly finding that I'm like spending way too much time just like actually looking at their stories and like reading their posts and like commenting on their stuff and participating in their polls. And it's like, wait, no, wait, I'm getting sucked in, but it's a good kind of sucked in. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter, it's like sucked in a negative way. So that's what I'm working on right now. But I do hope to be putting pen to paper more so, for the second book. There's also a novella which I um, I think is going to be a novella later this year, based on a short story that just got rejected, but was given some very nice praise. It wasn't correct for the thing that I was applying for. So I don't know. I think I might be expanding that novella into a novella at some point, but I don't have any firm plans with that. And that I'll have to totally read. rethink like how do I want to publish it. I might self-publish that, and then there's the collection that I mentioned earlier. I'd love to get one of those things out by the end of the year, whether it's this novella, which just over the last 2 weeks has been like would be an extrapolation of a 6,000 word short story. I'd love to get book 2 out, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's a long one.
In its own time, right? We have a couple. Well, we've got Mindy who says she's going to read Sentinel next month, which is really exciting. Mindy, once I've had a chance to read it, we'll have to sit down and gush all about it, chat back and forth.
If you like it, you might be that first 1-star review. You can be. Don't let this taint your perception. Honestly, like you don't like it, cool.
It's really hard because I've got such a broad reading taste. It's very hard for me to find something that I don't get gripped in a book to enjoy it to a certain point, right? So people will often tell me, Drew, honesty, they'll send me messages and say, you're lying, you're always giving 4 stars, 5 stars, the odd 3-star. And I'm like, listen, I read everything and anything. So chances are, if I'm telling you I love it, I really did love it. Jason does have a... Sorry?
No, I give a lot of bad reviews. If you are a Scary Starling watcher, you will see that I DNF a few things, and I talk about it. So,
well, and it happens, right? Because if it's not your jam, and you know what, it helps. Like I said, negative helps too, even if it was a DNF. Just getting that word out there.
I DNF'd to Stephen King a couple weeks ago, so.
And I'm sure it didn't hurt him at all.
Oh, he's cool. He's good.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and it does. It's helpful because having that criticism, both negative and positive, helps anyone grow, whether you're a huge, well-known author or just starting out. Speaking of which, Jason does have this question. As you are a newer writer, what advice would you have for new writers?
Oh, God. Trying to think of something I did that I would not do. I guess here's a good one that's on my mind and it's relevant, is I would not oversaturate yourself on social media. And what I mean by that is, overcommit yourself on social media, because it stresses me out to think about the fact that I have 3 social media channels and I'm considering adding a TikTok. And one of them is Twitter, which I don't even use. And I think if I don't know, if I were to wave a magic wand, I would just not have a Twitter anymore. And I might not even have a Facebook. I would just have my mailing list and Scary Starling Instagram and probably TikTok. Because it's taken me this long to figure out how I want to communicate with people. So maybe that's the advice, is figure out how you want to communicate with people, what's easy for you. It's difficult for whatever reason for me to come up with like a Facebook post. And when I think of a Facebook post, I don't do a lot of video. It's plugging something about me. What I've really kind of gotten into the groove of are these like Scary Starling book minutes, where I just sit in front of this camera in this stupid chair and talk about a book for 2 minutes for no good reason. And that's how I kind of got attracted to the whole Bookstagram community. But it took me 2 years and like 2 failed platforms to figure that out. So I don't know. Figure that out earlier. That would be my advice, because you've got to do something. You got to do something. You got to be somewhere. I also love my mailing list, again, because that's just like my little tribe, my little team. So I don't know. Pick your socials wisely. That's my advice to new authors.
I think that's a great advice. Maybe that's what you need to do, is trash Facebook, trash Twitter, and just focus on those couple platforms. And having that street team, that list is... Yeah,
they're so helpful.
I hear it is.
Without them.
Well, and they're always there, and they're your go-to people. And, if you have that new project that's coming out, they've already got that. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's authors that if they came to me and said, hey, I'm releasing this in the next month, I know you're swamped, but can you get it read and reviewed? Because they've got history with me, I'm there, right?
I don't think I'd make it happen. Anybody, but all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. I just know.
Just going to make sure we haven't.
You could post, yeah, how should I, what do you want there? Post a sentence or paragraph from the latest book or one of your releases. Hook some people in.
Hook some people in, yeah.
Can I do comments here?
You may be able to. Yeah, if you can see the chat, you may be able to.
Can I read something to you? Would that work, Lewis?
Yeah, I would love to hear something. That would hook me in. And not that I'm already hooked, Drew.
All right. I'm going to do something which I know my dog is not happy about, but I'm going to read. If you're bored, which I would be bored listening to me after an hour, 10 minutes, you can go ahead and log off. But I'm going to read an excerpt from the book that is about a third of the way in. Basically, yeah, here it is. This is what I was finding earlier, Nicole. And maybe you'll like this, maybe you won't. All right, I'm going to stop wasting time. Aaron is the main character. He's the father. He's the one that's seeing these things out in the woods, and he's having a dream. Darkness took Aaron until he found himself standing on the deck of an indoor swimming pool. He had been there before, long ago, but he couldn't place it. The water was tranquil. The building was silent. In a dreamlike trance, Aaron's legs began to walk themselves towards the edge of the pool until he found himself in it. He passed the 3-feet marker, then 4, then 5. Then his lips touched the water and seeped into his nose. He kept walking, but somehow he also kept breathing. His eyes became submerged, and he saw something at the bottom of the deep end. It looked like a person, a young boy. Aaron got closer, closer, and closer. Caleb. Aaron's little son, Caleb, lying naked and unconscious at the bottom of the pool. His eyes were open, and his face was blue. Aaron walked to within inches of the catatonic boy. Tiny air bubbles lined the contours of his cold, lifeless face. Aaron took him by the hand, and his feet began to walk again, this time right up along the wall of the deep end. Caleb felt weightless as Aaron dragged him out of the pool and laid him down on the deck. At no point during any of this did Aaron panic or become scared, or even feel as though this was out of the ordinary. Caleb blinked twice. Then his mouth swung open to reveal a gob of black slime that spewed out over his lips and down his chin. Without moving a muscle, Caleb's body slid along the concrete and plopped right back into the pool, leaving a trail of black slime and Aaron alone on the deck. In the water, a dark mass began to take shape. It started in the center of the pool and grew outward until it poked out of the water. A dog barked faintly in the background of whatever world he found himself in. Aaron smelled metal and he tasted ash. The black mass rose further out of the water, nearly to the ceiling. All at once, the thing recoiled and revealed itself to be the creature from the meadow. It was right there in the pool, mere feet in front of him. It must have been 20 feet tall, a titanic black body devoid of all but the most general features. Its construction made it look like it had been crudely slapped together with mountains of pewter-colored mud. It had shiny skin, a rough stump of a head, and 3, not 2, tiny yellow eyes that looked right through Aaron all the way into his soul. They saw his thoughts. They saw his fear. But it wasn't the thing's size, metallic smell, or even the 3 yellow eyes that scared Aaron. Rather, it was its unsightly collection of long, tentacle-like fingers. Each individual finger or claw or whatever they were must have been 6 feet in length, and they moved ever so slightly back and forth, not as flotsam in the water, but as sentient appendages quivering in some way that may have made sense to something somewhere in this universe or the next. They hung from the creature's elbows like old dead branches of a lightning-charred tree. The barking grew louder. Then, millions of flies rose up in the water and began spinning around the creature, hiding and protecting it in a dense and dizzying suit of insectile armor. The buzzing was deafeningly loud, and then the creature began to emit a guttural droning sound so loud it shook the entire building. The pool water rippled, and the ceiling tiles began to crash into the ground. So,
Buddy, read anyone? How about like everyone in the chat that hasn't read it? Why don't we like all get together and do like some type of like group read here?
yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
We'll see. I heard of you, Drew, on Facebook. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're a Facebook person. Facebook came to me on. Yeah. Thank you, Priscilla.
Yeah. No.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm so glad that you did that, and it ended up being the perfect timing because I ended up getting kicked out. So that would just
you're out?
worked. Yeah, that worked perfect. I came in 2 seconds. It was in and out.
So is the thing over? Am I still
talking? We're still talking. We're still up. We're still. I just got kicked out because for some reason.
Oh, you got back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I get kicked out, you're still live. People can still see you and hear you. Yeah. This is just. Everyone's loving it. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on these.
You're good.
Yeah, no. Now I'm really excited to go and pick up a copy and to dive into it as soon as possible because that sounds just fascinating. And the cover, that was the perfect piece to pick as well to read.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry. I'm just like in awe. I'm like kind of speechless, speechless now, and I'm just kind of thinking about.
Well, that happens in the first like 60 pages, so it's not that big of a spoiler.
No. Yeah, Mindy, I'm jealous. She's gonna jump into it, and she's gonna be sending me messages and saying, "Nikki, why haven't you read it yet?" Well, that's very exciting. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions. Yeah, absolutely, Drew. You're welcome back anytime on here.
Awesome.
I want to know more, and definitely if I've had a chance to be able to read it and have you back on and to be able to talk about it. Or if you ever have anything else that you're wanting to feature or promote, something that's coming out, just give a poke.
Okay.
That's how you might drop a live chat. Yeah.
Okay, great.
But yes, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for everyone that came to join us in the chat or anybody that's watching the show after the fact. I apologize for all the spammers and crude and rude comments.
You know what? It builds character. For us, not for him. But
that's right. That's right. That's right. He doesn't know that he was just helping us. Or they. Exactly. I don't know if it was a he or she. Who knows, right?
Maybe it was some demonic entity that was invading our computers.
Some alien or something. No, I'm glad you didn't, Mindy. There was quite a few in here, and for some reason, for a second there, StreamYard wouldn't let me block them either. So you missed out, you came in at the perfect timing. But again, Drew, thank you so much for coming on. It's been just a pleasure getting to know more about you and your work.
Thank you.
Slap me on the hand for not reading it yet, but now I'm very excited to jump into it.
You're good. There's not going anywhere.
All of those books on the list. I know Jason was just mentioning it in one of his live shows, and I'm like, we're going to get crushed by our TBR piles, which is going to be like heaven on earth.
Seriously. Well, that's why I do audiobooks, is because like I have to, like you, have to have all formats going at the same time. I'm like, I did that.
And it helps you get more in, right? Especially if you're driving or you're commuting or even cooking and cleaning, you can dive into those. So it's definitely helpful. But I mean, 98% of what I read is indie or small press, and a lot of it's not on audio, right? So have to get your hands on all of it. Anyways, thank you so much again for coming, and you're welcome anytime. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you can get that audiobook out and have your lovely wife read it for you, and she's the professional in that.
She absolutely is. And my little doggy Poe over there is giving me the I gotta go out eyes.
Yeah, we gotta go now. We gotta go now.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I really appreciate it. This is
absolutely
awesome.
Anytime. And everyone, I will have all of Drew's links down below, so go and check out all of his socials and go pick up his book. Let me know, and maybe we can plan like a big group read.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks. See you guys later.